Yo, what is up, YouTube boxing family? And YouTube gaming family. I'm back at it with another good video. Just wanted to kind of make a response to some idiots that were, continuing like this hate on Shakur Stevenson for the Puerto Rican heritage. But I guess like this is more like a response to all the idiots on the back trying to discredit Puerto Rican lineage. And I think it's kind of like a red zone to go into because I'm not like the one to really get so deep into history, in which I'm very educated in history. But I'm not going to sit here and say that when people talk shit about other people's tribal cultures or, like the bloodlines of people's heritages, that's not a good way to put yourself in a proper position. But I'm going to say what I have to say and then I'll leave it at that. But I guess this is more a response to all the idiots that talk down on Puerto Rican heritage and try to speak for a people that has lived on for thousands of years. Before let the whole colonial warfares began with Spain trying to go in and try to conquer, and then they ended up backfiring on that. But this is more like a historical I guess educational video to basically say to all the weirdos in the back that says that Puerto Ricans are black, black people own Puerto Rico. But I'm just gonna sit here and say, like, don't disrespect a island that's been inhabited by a tribe of people that had no lineage of being black in the first place. um See, now, for those of you that don't know Puerto Rico's original name for the island was called Borican. That was the land of the actual Taino word for the Taino Indians. Predating to, I'd probably say, like, I mean, Tainos have been around for quite a long time, but let's just say 3 to 4 thousand years, to this current era. Taino Indians are obviously a Indian group that has originated from the Arawakan Indian tribe and Caribbean islands, but originally their roots had started out in South America. And after that time frame had passed, that's where their migration had began to the to the Caribbean, to the West Indies, and to different parts of what the Americas before actually hitting the United States, in which the Arawakan Nation is a gigantic chain of different nations combined. So with the Tainos had like five nations, if I'm not mistaken. But with Puerto Rico's case, the Borican land was founded by the Taino Indians, and that's where they ended up settling, and then they just had like their regular migration of immigrants that came through, and they naturally inhabited the land for quite a long time. See, now, to the racist dipshits that want to say Puerto Rico was owned by black people, black people were never, in the Caribbean until the transatlantic slave trade began. And some idiots on YouTube like to say black people founded, like the Americas, and they did all this crazy nonsensical stuff. In which maybe part of that could be true if you want to talk about maybe like the Mesoamerican, land time frame where Mexico had maybe black people, where they had like the Olmec tribe. But I think that was not really a thing because the Olmec tribe, they were like a tribe of Mesoamerican Indians of their own right. And that's what made like the Aztecs who they are, because the Aztecs actually came from South America, in which almost every single American Indian is either genetically connected to the Eastern Asian route of Asian migrants that came from that part of the world over to South America, in which their genes had evolved away from that, and now they have more of a, South American gene because, their gene pool had, expanded away from it. So now, that gene pool had been split from different, lineages from different, how should I say, like from different I'm sorry, from different periods of time. So with Puerto Rico was really never, inhabited by any black people. Taino Indians have been a really massive bloodline that has had various different bloodlines from different Indian tribes, and I'm not really so deep into, the tribal history itself, but the only concept of where black people had ever, set foot at any part of the Caribbean would probably be the, slave trade that had been brought over by the Spanish or English or Dutch or whoever, in which they got the slaves from Africa, where the African nations were basically screwing themselves over, and they ended up basically just, going after their own people to actually, basically sell them, into slavery. So for Puerto Rico's case, black people were really never to be anything close to any part of the Western Hemisphere. And I mean, the only time where black people had ever had any of their own, independence per se would probably just be like, the time where, blacks in Haiti, they, came together and then they just had their own way of revolting, against France, and then boom, that's where Haiti actually had their own, success. But that was short lived because Haiti's not really doing good now, and it wasn't doing good prior, to the secession. But I mean, it's not bad because it's like Haiti, they're not in the right direction, but it's a better step to say like, F colonialism, and nobody doesn't want to be, submitting to a, authoritarian, crazy, empire, of like a different state ruling over other people that did not choose to be, enslaved. But either way, for Puerto Rico's case, that's basically how it went down with like, the Tainos. Like, I mean, the Taino Indians have had like a really rich history and, different things of what they did do. I mean, similar with like American Indians in North America that, many people would study, minus from like all the savagery tribes that were built, within. But for Taino's case, the Tainos had, a lot of knowledge and, in medicine, farming, irrigation, skills, and I mean, plenty of other, I guess like, skill sets that, made like the island rich and like, whatever that people did at that time frame. So it's not like people were stupid and people just came out of their way to just basically be savage and end up killing other people, in which a good amount of, tribes out of what the, how should I say, like, ranging from the Caribbean leading down to South America, like, there were violent tribes in those certain sectors, but it just all depended on, what people really believed in. Like, I guess, like, when you look at like, the Aztecs, the Aztecs, for most of them, they were very, most of them were very violent, tribal, people, because the Aztecs believed in their weird, tribal religious beliefs to actually go after, their own people and actually wage war, up against them. So that's what the Aztecs, actually wanted to do because, they had certain, I guess like goals, politically and of like what they wanted to do to control, other people, and their own, religious beliefs, at that time. But I mean, not everybody was like that. There's, certain peaceful sectors of, of American Indian, tribes that wanted peace and wanted to modernize. So it's not like every single tribe out of like American Indian, you know, roots were just bad people. So people can't just throw that jacket on and just say that, they were bad people to begin with. No. But to really say that people just didn't have like any means to be successful, and all they did was just basically go out in the wild and just not really be smart with like their lives, that doesn't really serve like a really good argument. And you know most people don't really look at like the history of like how everything went down. But in regards to Puerto Rico, itself, obviously, yes, Spain tried to do what they wanted to do to try to control Puerto Rico, in which it backfired because, at that time frame after the colonial wars had ended, that's where Spain basically went downhill because they were waging war up against other countries at that time frame, in which, I believe France, the Dutch nations, and I believe England, those are like the major powerhouses at that time. But Spain was not doing good because they were picking too many fights with too many people that basically ended up they ended up just coming together, in their own nations being formed to get away from Spanish, rule. So, but the Spanish, rulership was not really going to, end up being, successful in the first place because either people were going to get killed, in the process where, it was going to end up being like a violent revolution in which, that's where most countries such as like Argentina, Bolivia, what else? Peru, Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, like I mean all those countries, literally seceded from the from like the chain reaction events of what the Spanish Empire tried to do to get people controlled for basically lifetime, where people just had like no civil freedoms and liberties in what they wanted to do. So I mean, either way, like Spain is very evil, in that regard. And I personally, I don't look at my Spanish heritage to be proud of that because it's like, I'm not going to bow down to any colonial dipshit empire that never cared about you in the first place. They cared about having you basically emulate their culture that they try to force onto your ancestors. And it's just stupidity, at its finest, because it doesn't really represent who you really are, as a person. But when you look at the genetic makeup of Puerto Rico itself, Puerto Rico to a good portion has Spanish blood, but to the maternal end of of what the people's roots, like most Puerto Ricans look brown at the end of the day, in which a good portion of those genes are still inherited through the female side, if I'm not mistaken, with Taino Indian genes. So therefore, Puerto Rico at this point is, heavily diverse. There's no doubt about it. I'm never going to say, white Puerto Ricans will never be a part of my family or whoever, because everybody in my family is like, extremely mixed. And many people have different, bloodline heritages of, where they started. So, obviously, like, it just really depends on how, families have been brought up with their bloodline heritages to, be in that, I guess, like, certain gene pool that would make up a certain geographic population. And I mean, it's the same thing here in America. Not everybody in America is represented properly, and there are black people that are mixed with, white American Indian genes. But I mean, Let me just be like, how should I say, literal with certain things on racial background. Like, your racial background is made up by the family that, brought you in, to the world, and therefore you represent who you are of what you're proud of. So therefore, guys like Canelo Alvarez, he's proud of being Mexican. Obviously, most Mexicans do not look white. A good portion of them look brown. But when you have idiots like Mikey Garcia and Jesse Vargas saying, "Oh, I'm not brown, I'm white," in which to any like racist that hears that, they're gonna say, "No, you're fucking brown. You're not white." But to them, they're going to try to play that stupid game to think that they are white, but it's like, that's not helping them, because it's like you can't really, make a valid point of you being white, because your ancestry is built to be brown, influence ancestry. So either way, it's like your ancestors still brought you to the world looking like that. So you can't walk away from not being who you are, out of that gene pool. So, I mean, that's just me, of course. I'm proud of who I am. I don't consider myself a quote unquote, Hispanic. I'm just like a black man. I mean, granted, there will be certain instances where some people will say, "Hey, do you look Dominican? Do you look, Puerto Rican or Brazilian?" Like the black gene is very strong, within the South American and Central and Caribbean American bloodlines. But just to make it clear, it's like, there's no standard of what you need to what you need to look like, out of your gene pool. And for Puerto Rico's case, it's like every Puerto Rican is different. I stated that on, many different, occasions in this video, but I'm not going to just sit here and say that black people, run Puerto Rico, because, the history shows that black people were not doing that. They were being tortured, they were being killed, and they were not being, represented properly when black people were forced into Puerto Rico, and therefore the racist, diaspora, continued after the Spanish, conquest, leading up to, the freedom of being taken away from Spanish rule, not through the United States government, in which the United States government basically took over the rulership. But if anything, Puerto Rico really doesn't need the United States. They can make up their own mind at any given point in time to ever think about actually seceding. But it's just like Puerto Rico, they had more opportunities after the colonial control, where more people can freely integrate, and people had more interactions with their family bloodlines, and people didn't have to be discriminated for for who they are. But yeah, in regards to Puerto Rican history, to all the racists, detractors or race baiters per se, Puerto Rico was not founded on black genetics. Black people clearly showed that they were not treated equally coming into the island when they were brought in as slaves, because that was their only means to entry, because there was no such thing as black immigrants coming in through their own boats, in which I'm pretty sure some Africans had some access to that. But it's like at that time frame, Africa was going through multiple wars, and therefore the people that were fighting at the time frame, they were fighting to gain resources off of other people that were either ending up stealing resources from other parts of the countries that were in Africa. And then on top of that, the rulers at the time, they were using certain people as slaves to trade for resources. So it's like either way, it's just that it's all evil political dealings that, competing state, empires had done to make people, basically associate with people that they never wanted to associate with. And, it's all, evil enslavement, at the end of the day. But I guess for anybody that wants to get pissed off at that, it's like that's what's shown on the history books, and it's not supposed to be disputed. So either way, people that want to create some weird weird how should I say weird historical revisionism is just outright retarded. So either way, that's pretty much it with like what I have to say. I don't really have too much to really say on it, because it's like I'm proud of who I am, and I'll always be proud of Puerto Rican ancestry. I basically study it almost every single day, where I have a pretty good understanding of like how the island thrived before colonial invasion. And that's just who I am as a person. I guess if people have a problem with that, then go F yourself. But either way, man, that's pretty much it. I mean, I just wanted to kind of give my personal thoughts in a apolitical manner on Puerto Rican history, and other stuff. So I appreciate you guys, and yeah, I'll be back at it with more boxing and gaming content for the channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. So salute to the mighty LDBC, and salute to the TWT. All right, I'm out. Peace. Bye.